And welcome to episode 3 of Three Tired Dads. We are three tired dads who get together and talk about life, being dads, and we talk about a video game that we played in the last month. So I'm Sharks.
I'm. I almost said spleen. That's not right.
Uh-oh.
Who am I?
Wait a minute.
Phenom. That's what I am. Oh, how did I forget my own?
And I'm Spleen.
If
I
you
almost
want
said
to be,
Joker, which is the other one that
I'm
used to go by
Spartacus.
we're all spleen. Oh, Captain, my Captain. Good. Well, welcome back, guys. How are things? What's going on?
Good.
Before we started recording, we were talking about how
Yeah.
our bodies are falling apart and that you wouldn't be able to save your family in a crisis
That is true.
situation.
Yeah, that is a very depressing conversation to have. Yeah.
It is. Both my
Oh, that
index
could be
fingers
interesting.
hurt. I was
My
getting
my wife
hamstring, my
listened
legs
to
hurt.
the beginning of the first episode, and she was like, "I really like the part when you're talking about being dads and stuff." So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, we can do a little more of that at the beginning. So tell us your depressing story about how you can't save your family.
Oh,
That
yeah.
sounds exciting.
Oh my god. You make it sound so much worse.
I mean, you
I
said your
was-
wife
you
fell
kinda
in
got
the
it right.
garage and she was
Yeah,
just laying
yeah,
there for
my wife
hours
fell
and you couldn't get
over.
out there.
Wait, what'd you say?
She even hit the life alert and nothing
She
happened.
did. Nothing happened.
She was just laying there all day. I didn't know what to do. I just couldn't,
My
know.
body wouldn't
no.
let me go help her up. You know.
Yeah, I
kept
just
opening the
couldn't,
garage
I
door and be
couldn't get
like,
off the
"Not right now."
couch. I was trying to research this game, and I was like, "Hey, can you keep it down? I'm trying to
In the
trying to
middle of
clear
a
this
really good run.
here."
So your wife fell. How did she fall?
Well, yeah, it was just she just stepped funny out of the garage. It wasn't anything like life threatening, but yeah, it was just like one of that realizations of in the random happenstance of if crazy things were to happen, being as overweight as I am, it would be a hindrance to handle certain situations if they ever happen. And so I have to fix that because being now 35, uh my body hurts.
Welcome to 35. I remember
not fun.
35.
All those years ago.
All those years ago.
I think they just invent the color TV or
Oh man, color TV. I remember when TVs weren't flat and were
Oh, yeah.
insanely heavy.
Yeah.
and then we put them on top of very not sturdy
Questionable objects.
furniture.
I remember when Garrett knocked a really. Sorry, I said Garrett. I said
That's
your name.
fine.
I remember when Phenom knocked a very heavy TV, and it was like a 32-inch TV, which is a big deal back in the day. You knocked it off, and it didn't work, and so our dad was like, "Here, Lyle." I said my name. What's the point? What's the point?
Things are
Start
going
all
great.
over again. He was like, "Hey, you want this TV? It doesn't work." And I was like, "Okay." And then I turned it on, and it worked fine, except it had a slightly funny color in one corner, and I was like, "Sweet, 32-inch TV for me."
How old was I? I do not remember.
Somehow the
this.
TV didn't crush you because it wasn't. It was probably second grade, maybe.
Oh Lord,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
extremely tiny
Yeah.
then.
I remember I had this I remember it was a Mitsubishi TV. And it had to have been like a 30 something, and I swear it weighed 100 pounds. And it
Seriously?
was on
Probably
top of like one of those cheap particle board
No.
dresser cabinet things, and I don't know how I didn't ever get crushed by that. It would have just I remember setting that thing, and I think it was like right next to where my bed was, so if it would have just fallen in my sleep, I would have died.
I remember
Sure.
when TVs used to have handholds so you could pick them up
Yeah,
just because they were that heavy.
CRTs, man.
I remember moving them and fearing for my everything and just worrying I was going to die.
Wait, you know what?
Just make-
I didn't worry about that stuff back then. Like being crushed by
didn't-
something was just a possibility. We
that
didn't wear
was just
bike
life.
helmets.
That was just life.
My bike
yeah.
didn't even have brakes.
No, yours did not.
Did you do like a front flip over spleen at some point or something like that?
No,
okay,
that
no,
that was when I got pulled under my own bike.
That was
Oh
all
yes,
him.
that's what it was. That's what
And I was the real victim there. I almost ran into a tree.
Yeah.
I just remember Spleen saying something to the effect of like, "I want to go home."
He did.
I-
He looked up at me and he goes, "I want to go home. Take me home."
I-
And I went, "Yeah, man, we're nowhere near home, and I can't carry you anywhere."
See, again, back to the whole crisis situation.
So, except this time I'm the failure because
No
I
one,
couldn't
no one
carry
can,
you.
no one can save me.
I honestly would look at you and be like, "Sorry, man," and then I just
Sorry.
keep going.
Honestly, I think at this point I'd just be like, just go.
Give you a
Dude,
hug.
his
I'd
shoulder was messed
Oh
up.
my! It was like my whole shoulder was road rash.
He literally, like, I watched it happen. I was behind him. He pushed down on the pedal and the pedal broke off. And so his
The-
foot just kept going,
There was
sucked him
on
under.
on that sidewalk. There was where the bridge was. There was a slight lip where the bridge was higher, and so yeah, when I pedaled down, it caught and snapped the pedal off.
Good
Yep.
Lord.
And then I somehow went from on top of the bike to under the bike.
You did. You did. And then I almost ran into a tree.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. It's terrible. It's
I've never
terrible.
quite had an injury that bad by any means. The worst that, and you'll probably remember this, Sharks. It was probably, it was elementary school. I can't remember which grade it was. This one was just more funny than anything, but I remember it hurting like the dickens. I was on a teeter-totter with another kid, and I was tiny. We're talking like I was very small. Everybody else was
What's
much larger
changed?
than me already. I was holding onto the bar, and there was a new kid at school, and he was kind of a bully. And I was at the
Sorry.
bottom of the teeter totter, and you saw obviously the other kid was up in the air. That bully, who's huge already, came over and pushed down on the other side as hard as he could. And instead of me letting go and trying to get off, I just gripped onto the bars tighter, flew forward, and it was not one that was like solid in the middle. It had two metal bars, and I hit the right bar, the left bar, and then landed in the middle with my head, and then I had this bruise, just this huge bruise in the middle of my head for like weeks, and I think it showed up
That
in school photos.
explains everything.
No, the soccer ball to the
The
face.
soccer ball to the
explains
face, yeah.
No, that just kind of
Yeah.
solidified it. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I stood there, if I remember correctly, and laughing. So
Wait,
Well, I
kinda
after he
asked
hit
for
you
it.
in the soccer ball, in the face with the soccer ball?
yeah,
No, you cried a lot.
no,
Oh,
we
did I?
held you
Oh.
down, and we
'Cause
held you down, so you
we
couldn't
did
go
not
tell
let you go in to go tell
your
on
mom.
Marcus.
everybody that's listening
Yeah.
to this, just realize this is what happened to me when I was a child. I was held down,
Hey.
told not to do things. It's fine.
You were a little
Hey, we were
brother.
kids.
That's just what happened.
It's true.
Don't go
Yeah,
to mom.
I-
Don't
we
go
were
to
kids.
mom.
I was a little crap. Like I just was. I know I was a little tattletale and all sorts of things. So
I mean,
Anywho's
to be
it.
fair,
We could go on
Spleen
for-
kicked me in the face once. So
that is true.
We're not even going to go into that story.
I don't know if we have time for that story.
We're supposed to.
it's not podcast worthy.
No, I'm saying it's not. I just don't know if we have time.
I thought we were supposed to be talking about being dads. No.
Hey, that's part of it. That's how we got here. You know, what kind of kids were we? It might tell you
Yeah.
what kind of dads we are.
Wow.
I'm just terrified as to what kind of kid I was, as to what kind of kid I'm getting.
Well,
think you're
you said
finding
one
out.
of your kids is struggling a bit.
Oh yeah, he's learning emotions head first. It is a doozy. He's just like he'll put himself in timeout and then get mad at us when we tell him to like he's not in trouble and like get away from the door.
Oh,
It's very strange.
okay.
Okay.
It's like he's trying to like take away our power. He's like, I'll just put myself in timeout. You can't do. What are you gonna do now? And it's like, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
And I'm sitting there going like, I have no idea what to do.
If I could
you're
only get
not in
over there to
timeout?
you, but my body won't let me.
Yeah,
I can't open this door because I'm too weak to save you from being inside the room.
Can't fit through the door.
Well, that's a different problem.
no.
Well, Sharks,
So-
how's life been for you? Like being a dad and stuff.
Well, I mean, being a dad has been good. Yeah. My daughter is honestly kind of thriving right now. She went through last year was just rough for her, but she's really come around, and this new school is working out, and we're looking into getting her like professional contortion training and stuff.
Sweet.
Like, yeah, it's pretty legit.
Has she ever seen Cirque?
Oh yeah, we went last year, and we're actually
Awesome,
going
good.
this Sunday.
Good. I figured I thought about the other day about her and that I was like, she would. I imagine she probably loves it.
Oh
Well, she's like
yes,
80%
obsessed.
rubber band. So
Seriously,
Yeah.
she's amazing, um, and she will be the only one because this week I have my vasectomy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's happening on Friday.
that's exciting.
Have fun sitting down for a while.
Yeah,
I have a donut if you need it.
I mean it sounds delicious, but I don't see how it helps my.
I would not
testicles.
recommend eating this donut.
You can't stop
just
me.
wouldn't. You're right.
I don't.
And
I
I
want. I
wouldn't.
want to not be able to save my family, so I'm going to eat that donut. No,
This is
yeah.
a very
Eating one of my
this is a very dark
Hey,
dark
started it, man.
conversation.
This is a
You
dark
started it.
timeline, man. It's a dark timeline.
Hey, I'm trying to fix it, okay?
But yeah, I have that, so it'll be my one and only. And it's really sad that to get it done here in town would have been $3,000 more expensive than to get it done 2.5 hours away.
That's funny.
So I get to sit in a car for 2.5 hours after having my procedure.
Yay!
The good news.
Just hover.
So, good news. So I have 2 new hoodie sweaters, like zip up hoodies. And they're really nice, except they started pilling, like the little fabric pilly bumps. So they were looking rough. And so my wife bought this little gun that, like, you turn it on, and it sounds like a little vacuum, but it's got 4 little razor blades that spin around. And
You shave your hoodies now.
Yes, I shaved them, and it is so satisfying. I just sat there and
know
was
that
just,
was a
I'm
thing.
wearing, you have to try it sometime.
I've always just used tape,
It,
and it's
this is much more
It's a little
satisfying.
the the pilling is a little different than like lint and stuff. Sometimes those
Oh,
are
okay.
a little harder to come
it'll,
off.
it'll get rid of the lint too.
Well, I
It's-
hope so.
I would hope so
it's-
with razor blades.
It's pretty sweet. Like, I almost want to
mean-
invite you over just to shave some of your clothes because it's that satisfying.
What?
But that's how I
What is
identify some of my shirts. Is I know they're the ones that'll fit right because they have pills on them.
Yeah, come over. I will shave your shirt for you. I'll even
Do
let
not. You are not shaving my shirt.
please.
No. Because you'll somehow try and get my chest hair, and then I will be very upset with you.
I mean,
Well, that's your problem.
you
have
could
chest
do
hair.
worse. You could do worse. So, anyway, that was the exciting thing for me. Work is going well, blah blah blah. But what about you, Fen? You're
didn't like how
soon to be dad.
aggressively
We're like
you
within
said
weeks.
Fen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, we know. She's not dilating yet. We had a doctor's appointment this morning.
I was
So
gonna
they've been
say, did you
checking.
check?
I haven't checked.
Take a peek in there.
The doc. I've let the doctors do that because they're kind of certified to do it.
Oh, okay.
You know,
If that's important
but,
to you.
I mean, that is true. Things are good. I mean, stress, nothing unusual. Work is going really good. It's going to be interesting. I'll make an incredibly long story short. The team that I've been partnering with and I are going to have a very interesting meeting tomorrow where I'm starting to like, they're not the only ones doing the work anymore. I'm starting to do it as well. But it's all my bosses and their bosses meeting, but they invited me to the meeting and to talk about me
Oh,
working on the
man.
work. And I'm like, okay, this should be interesting. So I'm just going to try to be a fly on the wall and just see what happens and just see how it shakes out. So that should be fun.
Just get
It
in and
works-
take over. Don't even
I-
hold back. Be like, this is my team now.
I mean, I kind of
Look at me. I'm
You're
the
the
captain
captain
now.
now. Yeah.
but
Nice.
work's going really good. It's busy. It's very, very busy, but it's good. My boss actually told me because I was talking to her about leaving, and she's like, I was like, I'm just glad to know that I have a job when I get back. She's like, oh, you do? I have lots of work lined up for you. I'm like, oh boy. So
Almost
that's
sounded like a threat.
it. Kind of did.
Is it like,
Kinda
you
did,
can't
and
go
then she
anywhere or I will
randomly
find
asked-
you.
It might have been a threat because then earlier she asked me for my new home address and what my
Oh.
handle
You're
is,
gonna
and
get a
I'm
bomb.
like, yeah, probably. Oh well, but that's good. I mean, we're still the house.
Hey,
is,
at least-
I don't think this was happening. No, we have a contract on the house, So
Congrats.
The other
yeah,
house.
the other house, yes, the one that we really want to sell. Got through the inspection. All they complained about was smoke alarms. That's fine. I
Okay.
can
That's
handle that.
minor. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing was is because they're asking for so much assistance from us, $12,000 worth, that we told them only major things. Anything minor, you can't complain about. The only reason the smoke alarms came up is because it's part of their loan. They have to have a certain amount, and so I'm like, all right, it's $50. We can do that. So got those installed. So
Yeah.
no biggie there. But that's at least moving, which is very comforting to know. But the problem is, due date for the vessel is the 22nd, and then the house is supposed to close on the 20th. So, yeah, things are kind of getting
I
very close
mean,
to one another
you might just have to be signing those closing documents in the
while
room
giving birth.
while,
fine. I might
you
have to forge a signature. It's good.
in between, pushes, you just tell her you just tell her, here, sign these few things, and
Honey,
then
could you focus on the important thing in this moment? I
yeah.
need your signature here, please.
Yeah, I need you to stop pushing and sign.
Just for
Hey,
a
can
Okay,
you
now
second.
continue to push.
take a breath for a second. Can you just put your initial here,
Luckily, it's
please?
digital, so I'm like, click this part of the screen. Okay, you're good.
Just
Keep
That's
going.
it. That's all we need.
just standing next to her, holding her finger, pressing stuff.
Could I just have a moment of your time, please?
Just controlling her hand as it goes around. Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, no, life. I can complain, but it's not worth it here. So this is meant to be a fun space. But life is good. Life ultimately is very, very good.
Look, parenting is hell sometimes, and that's okay. You'll learn.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The little one, she's good. She is moving, and we can see her pushing out
Moving
of the
is
stomach,
good.
rolling around.
As long as she doesn't rip out of there, you're okay.
I think she's trying. I swear she's gonna come out alien style, like a xenomorph.
That'd be kind of cool.
She's trying. Don't get me wrong. She is trying. So,
Be leaving
but
the
yeah,
vessel.
it's good. I do too. I have to, anyways. Yeah.
Good. The exciting news I had on the gaming front, as I showed you guys the screenshot of the email. I got in
Yes.
to the playtest for Elden Ring Night Rain, and I'm very excited.
Starts February
11th
13th?
is
14th?
11th is when I get the email about all, like, with the download code and all of that. I need to figure out what day it is, but I mean, it's probably only like 2 or 3 hours, but it's a
Still.
game that I looked at and I went, yeah, the three of us would be really happy playing this game, I think.
Sweet.
So I will hear. I
Does
honestly
it have
by
an assist mode?
I can't imagine why you're mentioning that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I will report back on what that was like, what that experience was like in the next episode. So
Sweet. Have you been playing any other games besides what we're going to be talking about today?
no, actually, I haven't even played Outbreak.
That's right.
Things have been busy and a bit rougher around here, and so it's been hard to. I mean, this game took up a lot of my attention. So no, I want to, but nothing yet.
What about you, Spleen? Anything besides 30
No, not really.
No.
Just been
God,
playing
no.
this at random times, and other than Lego stuff every once in a while, but
Hey,
That's good.
Lego
That's
stuff's fun.
chill.
Yeah.
Those are fun. Easy to just pick up and play. Those are fun.
And I know
Yeah,
I've seen you, Fen, playing some other things.
Oh, good lord, yes. I have such ADHD with games lately. And actually, I was playing this last time when we recorded. Indiana Jones: The Great Circle.
I
The
wondered
Vessel
about
and
that.
Yeah, the Vessel and I have been playing through it. It's not co-op. She's just been kind of watching and enjoying it with me, but it's very good. The gameplay is really fun. The attacks Indiana Jones does are brutal, but it's awesome. It's not like like gory or anything, but he wallops people. It's ridiculous. He hits them so hard. It's awesome. Gameplay is very, very fun. There's lots to do. It's kind of open world a little bit, which is kind of fun. And then, of course, the voice actor, and a lot of people will say this as well, Troy Baker does an amazing job sounding like Harrison Ford. It's a little weird the first time, like it sounds close to him, but as you play more, I can't hear Troy Baker anymore. Like I lose his voice, and it's just Harrison Ford talking. It's wild. So that's been fun.
What is
We're
the
all
gameplay
in
like? What would you compare it to? Because I immediately think like, what's the Nathan Drake games?
Uncharted.
Uncharted.
I wouldn't say it's too dissimilar. I think Uncharted is more linear. I would say maybe more Lara Crofty a little bit. I know that's pretty linear too, but it's got that same adventure feel. Definitely, it's got that adventure feel. It's first person, so that's different,
Oh, it's
which
first
is really
person.
fun. It is.
Okay.
The whip is a big part of it. Obviously, it's got to be, but you can use that to attack people, scare off dogs that come by. Of course, you're climbing with it, swinging with it, doing all that fun stuff. But it's a little bit depending on what zone you're in, because there's a couple of zones we hit that were very linear. But the first one they drop you into, for example, is Venice, and it's the entire zone they made completely open for you, to you to explore. And then you go around, and they have mysteries for you to go solve, puzzles to find. You find random things, you get little side quests to go do. Everything's got a cutscene to it, and it's a beautiful game. My gosh. And so you just run around, you try to find that, and you get adventure points, which you'll get books, and when you get the books to essentially learn the book, you have to have the adventure points. You get the adventure points for taking pictures around the world, doing puzzles, doing little quests, whatever it may be, and then of course you get money as well, which then you can use for a variety of other upgrades or whatever. So you can use, of course, like fist fights, and the fist fighting is actually really fun. A lot of sneaking if you could try to do it. I've kind of given up on it because I'm just like I am not good at it. I get caught anyways. So I'll just run in and beat up people. So I would compare it to probably Lara Croft or Uncharted, but it's definitely got its own feel and spin on it, which I really enjoy. First person's fun, beautiful game, little bit open world, which is really fun. Lots to do, lots I still haven't done, and I've moved past it. But it's been really fun. So
Hmm.
we're playing that.
Is it
Path of
canon?
Exile 2. I know that I believe it takes place between the first movie and the second movie. I believe. They definitely reference obvious
They
things
go to
that are canon in
Venice
the world.
in The Last Crusade,
Okay.
I think. Huh, I
I
don't know.
honestly can't remember.
I know that they open it. The classic stone ball rolling, that whole section that's very classic. We all know it.
Uh-huh.
They actually recreate that. Um, as part of it that shows where the timeline of this takes place. So clearly, this
Mm.
is right after that. This is not long after that took place, because clearly Indy is still remembering it.
Is
To
that
spoil that part, but
Raiders? I don't know. Interesting. It's definitely a game that caught my eye, but it's an expensive game.
it's an expensive game, unfortunately, and you either have to have a computer, which you do, computer that can run it, or have an Xbox, right? And PlayStation doesn't quite have it yet. It'll be another year, which is unfortunate. But my opinion, and Spleen, you're definitely one that I thought of, and Sharks, you would enjoy it too. But Spleen, I think you would enjoy it a lot. Number one, I believe it's got a lot of Indiana Jones canon. I
Hmm.
know you're a fan of Troy Baker, if I remember correctly. I feel like we've talked about him, so you would enjoy just being able to see what he does with the character, and it's great.
Yeah.
My gosh, and the gameplay's fun. Like it really is a lot of fun.
Why am I
Lots.
why am I blanking on what else he's
Troy
voiced with
Baker?
my? Yes,
Oh my goodness.
I know he's done. He's
He's done
done a
the
million
Joker.
things. And
He's done the
what?
Joker.
Oh, okay.
Most
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did the Joker. He was Joel from Last of Us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been in so many
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are the most notable
Batman,
ones.
Arkham Shadow, Uncharted 4.
Yeah, yeah, and really talented dude. So, yeah, been playing that. Super fun. Highly recommend it. Highly. Like if I did our scale that we normally do, I would put it at a 5 easily. Like
Death Stranding
get
2.
it. Yes, Destiny. Yes, it
Bioshock
was in that as well.
Infinite.
Oh, Bioshock Infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Such a
a
good
game I
game.
own, but I've never played.
Oh, do it. Oh, it's so good.
It, it's it,
Uh,
it's a good one. It is worth it.
I
I
was trying to
couldn't
play
recommend
through
it
all
more.
of the Bioshocks, and I think I got most of the way through the first one, and then
You
life
don't
happened.
need the
No, it's
you
its
don't
own
need the
thing.
first two for Infinite if you wanted to.
It is its own
It's yeah.
separated story, and
Hmm.
I have played through it 4 times, I think, and it's good every single time. Um, I could gush about that game for a long time, but I won't.
It's
But
fun when
Um,
that one starts getting weird.
yes, it gets even better, and then you get to the ending, and it just everything kind of
Even
comes
more
together.
weird. Anyway,
Oh, Anyways, because I don't want to ruin too much of it either. If you get time, Sharks, play it.
If I
Or
get
I'll
time.
stream it for you and you can watch me play it. I don't care. I've
I'll
also been
figure
playing Path of
something.
Exile 2.
We will make a podcast episode if we have to. No.
I will do it. 100%, multiple. But Path of Exile 2 has been playing. It was as I mentioned last time, it was frustrating. I have since re-rolled and played a sorceress because I had a coworker that was playing it. Sorceress is awesome. I am having like no troubles with the game now because I started diving into her ice abilities. I freeze everything. I freeze bosses, and I just kind of wail away on them. It's awesome. So I'm starting to really enjoy that again. They have a section that reminds me of the games we've been playing where you get to choose your path eventually, and you go to try to get your ascendancy, is what they call it. And each path that you take, of course, has modifiers of what's going to happen. All it's random, and I believe that's going to be an in-game thing too. And so you can come back to it. You can put in certain relics to try to make things easier, modify things as you go. Like there's a whole like other portion to the game with its own unique game set, and it was fun. I got through it on the first try because the sorcerers are just ridiculous. That's been fun. And then I started playing last night, Outer Worlds. Although that is good too. No Man's Sky. Uh,
Mm.
Only about 2 hours into it. I'm enjoying it. Um, it's really fun. Do you know what that is, Sharks?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was
Okay.
really bad when it first came out, and then they fixed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It's taken them, what, 10 years to finally get it?
Mm-hmm.
It's great now, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
so they have it on sale right now on Steam for anybody. Well, whenever this comes out. But right now it is on sale for us at this moment. That's why I just looked at it and I was like, I really want to play this, and it's a big played one on Steam Deck. So I'm like, all right, great. So I went and pulled the trigger, tried it last night. It was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to playing it more. Those are the games I've been playing, including the game that we're playing tonight, and also playing the next game as well. I have a lot more free time than I realized.
Sweet. Well,
Sweet.
then I
Enjoy
guess,
it.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
It's about to be gone.
enjoy it. You're running out of time.
On that note, let's talk about the game that we played for this episode. So each episode we choose a game to play and then talk about. We have a few requirements for that game. The first is that it needs to be under $20. Now it can be on sale, but usually we go through Steam, and so we're going for under $20. We want it to take around 20 hours to beat. It kind of depends on the game. And then we're trying not to go with any AAA titles. So, if, I don't know, The Witcher 3 goes on sale for under $20, probably not a game we're going to pick up. So the game that we picked up today was accidentally a sequel. When Spleen shows that he didn't know that, and that's okay, but it is 30XX, which is a Mega Man roguelite, basically. A Mega Man X roguelite, I suppose. And so that is the game that Spleen chose for us to play this week. And I think we have some varying opinions on how that went.
Yep.
Silence.
Oh, I didn't know if you're. Yeah. No, I know that
Um,
when we first started it.
I don't think any of us liked it at first.
No, the first few hours I was like, okay, I don't mind this, but then it kept going, and I'm like, I want to put my fist through a screen. Like that's where it got to for a while until we all jumped on a call and hung out and played it. And I was something about that night. I was like, okay, not minding it as bad. For anybody out there that picks it up, it's a hard game. There's just no
The
two
learning
ways around
curve
it.
is heavier than you realize.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
work toward that night. That night when we finally
yeah,
get
yeah,
together. So, we have a varying degree of experience with a game that controls like this. So, I casually did speedrunning of Mega Man X, and so when I started playing this game, if anyone out there who's played a Mega Man game, it's immediately going to feel very familiar to you. And if you played the X or Zero games, it's going to feel very familiar. You're going to pick it up and go, oh, this kind of feels like being at home. Like I hooked up my Super Nintendo controller, and I immediately,
Yeah, right out the gate, you seem to be the most comfortable with it.
I was super comfortable with it. Like it, my number one compliment to this is it handles so well. Like it feels right. Like as far as dashing and jumping and shooting, like it feels like I'm playing a Mega Man title, even though I'm quote unquote not. I'm not playing a Mega Man title. Like it felt good to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so while it is a roguelite, and there are 3 modes, and I think I definitely jumped straight into the standard mode, which is just you have a hub. After each run, you go back and you can upgrade things, but after that, every run is random, and you get as far as you can until you die. There is an end, but it takes quite a while to get there. And you get power ups along the way, just like any roguelite, just like the first 2 episodes. Anything we've talked about is going to apply here. You can upgrade your armor, you can get augments, and you're trying to put these pieces together by beating bosses and doing challenges like can you beat this section within a certain time limit to have a chance at different augments and upgrades? Can you not get damaged in this really difficult room? And that has a chance. There are mini bosses. Like, if you've played a Mega Man game or anything like a Mega Man game, you're going to go, oh, this feels familiar. So for me, having that background of Mega Man X, immediately I was like, no big deal. I got this. But I think you two had a very different experience. And I know, Spleen, you have the Dead Cells experience, which helped. And Fen, this almost felt like a brand new experience to you.
Yeah, classically, and I've learned this whenever I've played games with the Vessel or anything like that. Um, I'm not good at side scrollers games. I'm just not. There's something about the disconnection where I lose the Z axis and my brain's like, this is not for us. So getting into it initially, I was like, oh no, okay, this is gonna be rough, but it's just not my thing. But I will agree, the controls felt good. I didn't feel like the controls are clunky, and that's why I'm like struggling. I just sucked, and I knew that. So that was my initial experience because I just know like Smash Brothers, I'm terrible at it. I don't know why, I just am. So that was kind of my initial experience with it. It was just struggle because it's very new to me. I've played very few games like it.
And
Not to
what
show
about
my
you,
age.
Spleen?
I remember my initial gripe because yeah, coming from a more Dead Cells background, the way they had the control set up was a lot more comfortable for me. And with this game, there was a couple of additional mechanics that required other buttons. So like getting used to where I had to set, I think I changed the control scheme about 4 or 5 times to finally get to something that was comfortable. Um, but other than that, like it was definitely difficult at first because trying to um do the different style, like the different mechanics, Mega Man mechanics of like how to do the dashes, and like instead of being able to dash in midair, unless you get a power up to do it, of course, you have to dash before you jump, and kind of like changing my timings around differently and things like that. And so and just like Mega Man games, I feel like there's a higher enemy count, so you can't just barrel through it insanely fast without bodying too much, and then you die. So yeah, it was definitely a rough start, but then once I started getting comfortable with certain things, it started getting better. um
Well, and I think there was a difference of approach. So I am
mm,
the stubborn a hole who, even if there is an assist mode, it's very unlikely
mm,
that I'm going to use that because I like to overcome the challenge of figuring it out. You approach things so differently, and you're like, I'm totally fine using the assist mode to figure this stuff out. And then
mm-hmm,
I'll take the training wheels off, where I'm just falling over with no training wheels for a while.
right.
So I didn't use the assist mode. You both did. I haven't. I don't even know where it is. I haven't touched it.
I didn't turn on the assist mode until we were kind of working up to that night. That night we played, I did not have assist mode on, and I got to level 7, and I believe you can get to level 8, and then the game does keep going. Um, and so I hadn't turned on assist mode until the last like week because I wanted to get through the game. And I was like, if I keep doing, and also I never played not standard mode, mega mode was because
Mega
standard
mode,
mode
yeah.
was yeah. I never played mega mode ever. Never launched it up. I always did standard because I'm, if it's not obvious, Sharks and I related. I am very much so the same way. I'm going to keep running into a brick wall until I get this. And I wanted to keep doing that, but I'm like, I don't have time to do that to get to the end. I just don't
Right.
before we record.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Assist mode's going on. Let's get through it. My lord, was it easier when I turn on assist mode? Oh my goodness.
Ju-
I ran
yeah.
it once without dying.
So two
All the
things
way
we
to the
should
end.
two things we should talk about. One, we should talk about the difference between like the standard mode and mega mode. And two,
Yep.
because I didn't mess with the assist mode at all, you guys will have to talk about that because I didn't.
Sure.
So I'll talk
Sure.
about standard and mega, and I'll let you jump in on the second half. So the standard run, the standard mode, the way that the game is meant to be played is just like any roguelite. Like I was talking about earlier, you do a run, you die, you spend your points to upgrade a little bit, you do it again and see how far you can get. Mega mode plays, I think, much more like a traditional Mega Man experience. You have all 8, what do they call them, bosses here, but I call them Mavericks because I come from a Mega Man background. You have all of the Mavericks there, and you can choose one and you go, but there's a big difference. One, you actually heal up between each stage. That's huge. 2, you can choose from any of the Mavericks as you go. And 3, if you die, you don't lose that progress in the run. You still killed the Mavericks that you've already killed, and you get to try the level again. So Mega Mode's the more traditional Mega Man experience, and it's a little bit easier, quote unquote, easier than the standard mode, and the standard mode is just roguelite stuff.
Right.
Now you guys talk about assist mode.
Okay.
So yeah. So yeah, they have some options that for just being able to help survive longer in the game. They give you a few options, and you can either reduce the amount of damage you take, and it drops by 20% each tick, and you can go as low as the lowest you can go is 20% damage or 20%, or you can keep it at 100%. And then you can also lower the enemy health, which really for like the mobs doesn't really mean much, but for the boss, dropping it all the way down to 20% of whatever its health is, you can burn through a boss pretty quick. And then the fun one that I kind of messed with for a little bit, you can mess with the game speed, how fast it actually moves. All the way, I think you could drop it all the way to 25% speed, so you're moving a quarter the speed, or I think it was up to 150%, which is just bonkers. Um, which is almost impossible to control. I don't know why they let you do that in that part, but those are the kind of the main things that you do, and just literally being able to reduce when I started using it, like the first time I used it, I went ahead and went full tilt. I lowered the health, lowered the damage taken, just to kind of more or less do like almost reconnaissance missions through the levels to get a feel for what's going on. But you would definitely, like, very clearly, it's like I don't even think at this point I told you guys like how I was like, oh yeah, I made it through, blah blah blah. But it was like I wouldn't have told you at that point. I didn't say anything because I literally basically I was cheating. Like it's essentially cheating. um, but just being able to reduce the amount of damage coming in is literally a game changer. To be able to take, because that's basically when I would practice, that's kind of what I would just reduce the damage I would take, so that I had more time to make mistakes and be able to then get more comfortable with mechanics. And then as time goes on, I slowly took the stuff off, and then being able to, actually do a successful run without the training wheels. And then I turned it all back on because I was just scouring through the game, because like achievement wise and unlocking stuff wise, the assist mode doesn't affect it. So that was a nice little thing.
I feel
Yep,
two
for
ways
me,
about that, man. I feel two ways because on one hand, it's nice that everybody can get the achievements. On the other hand, what if I do it without the assist and you do it with them? I feel like I earned it more. I don't know. It's weird.
My ego does not require such
No, my ego needs stroked
things.
with these things.
Yeah, for me, I ended up, as I said, just turning it down. All I did was the damage, though. I turned that down to 20% and basically bodied everything. I just walked up to it and started swinging. I was able to kill it because I I also got it into a build where I got enough health and armor that it didn't matter. I was just like standing there until you get to the very, 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 very final boss. Then all of a sudden, my health started to deplete. I had messed up and gone already through my tank. By the way, in the game, you have your oh, I can't remember what they call it.
So basically,
Basically, if you
your E tank, basically,
right
if you
The auto
die,
tank.
the auto tank, yeah.
auto tank, that's what it was. Thank you. So basically, if you die, you have a chance. You get another life. Essentially, it gives you back so much health. You can upgrade how much health it gives you back. So it gives you a second chance to get through the run. I had at that point used it because I was stupid, and got to the final boss, and noticed my health was ticking down more than usual. I'm like, I have to actually try. So I had to like step up and try a little bit to get through it. Which shows that even still, it's still
Oh
not
yeah,
that easy
with
with it
the
on.
assist mode can, especially if you start adding messing with like entropy levels, which we'll get into those later. Basically, the game will still eventually like negate whatever you do on the assist mode. Also, I think it might be something to note that we there are two different characters you can play, and I think
Oh yeah, we should talk about
Finn
that.
and I played the melee based
Yep.
character named Ace primarily, and Sharks being the Mega Man X um, aficionado focused around Nina, the Mega Man inspired character, the standard.
Right, right. And it does make a big difference. Nina's base attacks are much weaker than Ace's, but Nina, the power she gets from the bosses, you can fuse them together, which I was really frustrated with this game for a little while because I was like, it doesn't feel like the powers that Nina gets are all that great. But I didn't read, and I didn't realize until 20 plus hours in that I could fuse them together. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, you can do some really cool stuff with Nina's powers, idiot.
I do remember.
So,
I think it was the night we jumped on. You had
Yeah.
this ridiculous build with like a machine gun
Oh yeah,
laser.
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
the
that was
Verity.
funny.
Yeah, that's one of the, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, it really does make a difference. And Ace, I think, is overall much more powerful and much better with this game. But you're right. Me being so comfortable having come from a Mega Man X background, it was much easier for me to pick up how Nina played. And my one clear of the game, which was the Deathless Mega Mode run, was Nina, and I had no problems. I had some deep zero ace runs, but I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I'm not as comfortable with ace.
I was far more comfortable with Ace. I most of the time I prefer to get up in the fight with most characters anyways, and being very fast and nimble. Not to say that Nita's not, but that's just how I like to play. And there's something about when I have to wait for the bullet to travel, my brain I just can't. And so I prefer to have the immediate feedback of knowing that I immediately
My,
hit. There,
yeah.
because there's just a slight travel until you make her fast enough to shoot. But I don't know. I just prefer to be near the boss.
Fair.
Mine was I know with certain power ups it would changes certain things, but being restricted to basically only horizontal means of attack was why every time I would try Nina every once in a while, and I just didn't get comfortable because a lot of Ace's attacks also allow him to attack above and behind him kind of all together. So I'm able to cover more areas of attack and not have to be a little more precise in my jumps to make sure I get lined up to be able to shoot horizontally.
Oh yeah, see, and
Agreed. That was
that's
something
something
that was
I'm
really
just so
nice.
used to is
Yeah,
being
and that's just
precise
Yeah.
with
second
the
nature
dash
for
jumping
you.
and stuff. That doesn't bother me at all. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite for Ace, at least my favorite weapon, because it just always felt right, was he could have a hammer. So you could always have multiple weapons. I think I don't know if it's the same for Nita because I just didn't have enough experience, but I know for Ace you can have two weapons you can switch between. And you could pick up those weapons as you go. You always start off with essentially like a little saber, and then eventually you can pick up two different kinds of weapons or multiple different kinds of weapons and switch
I think
based on
you
your scenario.
Yeah, I think you can pick up multiple weapons, and then you kind of can tell it which ones to switch through.
Right.
Like,
But I always just stuck with one.
yeah,
Because it
that's
once
kind
I
of what I
got the
did too.
hammer, it ripped everything apart. The best run that I did without assist mode on, and I got to level 7, which for those listening, you get to level 8,
Mm. Yeah,
and we
they're
can talk about it or not. But after level 8, things get way more interesting. But the initial run is 8 bosses. You want to get through the 8 bosses. I got up to the 7th boss with the hammer run, and at that point, I had I think I expressed I was frustrated with the game because I just was bad at it. It was hard. There was something about when we logged on that night, my first run all the way to level 7. I'm like, oh, okay, and it was that hammer because it can reflect objects, it can reflect projectiles, or at least much easier with that one. It did so much damage, and it had a huge arc, like just this big old arc in which you would
hmm
sweep through. So like that was always my favorite was the hammer.
My favorite for Ace was the Thanatos
Uh-huh.
scythe
Hmm.
Mm,
because when you're in the air, you just become a buzzsaw,
it is nice.
and and combine that with the power that allows you to get a cloud jump when you hit an enemy, you essentially are just a flying buzzsaw that will never touch the ground as long as you hit an enemy.
I think it's another good thing to talk about. I'm curious what your guys' favorites were. One of I believe it was the cores I got. Because they have a variety of items you can pick up that give you different abilities. And one of them that I enjoyed was anytime you had a health change, whether it was you gained health or lost
Mm-hmm.
health, it did damage around you. And it was a fair amount of damage. It was like 25, 50 points of damage each time. And then what I would do is I'd get another one. You have this meter that you can pick up with certain items called chaos. And the chaos would build up when you use any of your attacks and it lands on an enemy. And it when it fills up, generally what happens is you lose your ability to dodge or do anything like that, which sounds bad, but also it would make you invincible for a little bit.
Do you
So
mean
all I would
corruption?
do, corruption, sorry, not chaos, pardon me,
Okay.
sorry,
Just
corruption.
make sure I didn't miss a
Um,
mechanic.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
I was
no,
sitting,
no.
I was sitting there going like, what is
Def
this?
corruption. I mean, it's kind of the same
Sorry,
thing.
I
Anyway,
missed enough
the corruption.
mechanics in my first
No,
20 hours of this game.
That's fair.
I just want to make sure.
Um, but the corruption would allow me to go invincible after a while. Couldn't do anything, but I was able to body him and take damage and keep doing damage around me. That was more than what I could do just in general. So I kind of got to a point where I would just try to tank myself as much as I could, dodge, 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 use my abilities to build up that corruption, and then while the corruption's like burning down, body whatever enemies were near me because that was really nice. What are your guys' favorite like cores or items kind of in the game?
Well, let's talk about
Um,
the difference between like the core augments and the actual augments
yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So the core augments, you have a certain amount of core points. You start with like 10, and then you can upgrade from there. And all of the cores that you can pick up in the game, which could be armor pieces, they could be the weapons like the Thanatos scythe and other things. For Nina, it could have been like the Verity weapon, which allows me to just shoot a stream of lemons. It could be any of those things. And then so those take up points, and you only have so many points. You can increase your points, but that's an augment that you do that with. So the augments themselves are kind of everything else. That's your health upgrades, the damage upgrades that Fen was just talking about, and then your prototypes as well, which prototypes are augments that have huge upsides and huge downsides, usually at the same time. So those are the things you're going to be picking up and trying to
Yeah.
upgrade with throughout a
Yep.
run. I will say I have a lot of comments, I think, about this system. I I love that there are so many options, and that there are like, if you get a 4 set for the armor, there's a bonus. Like, I think that's really, really good. One of my big issues is that it seems to be unlike the last game we played, which was Nimrod's. You know, you had an augment pod or you had a tuning pod, and those they drew from a different pool. and so you were almost not guaranteed, but it was more likely to get the augment you were going for, or the augment that had a good synergy with what you're doing, and then the tuning just did the base stats in a lot of ways. This, it feels like every drop, it's all lumped into the same pool, and the pool is large enough that, you know, I we kind of play these games blind as we go, or I try very hard to play them blind.
At least for a
And
while.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least for a while. And I was on here before we started recording while we were waiting for Fen, and I was looking through the augment list, and I was like, I've never seen a few of these augments. Like, there's at least 5 or 6 that in 100+ runs, probably, maybe not that many, maybe it was 80 runs, but something like that. I never saw some of these. And so the pool almost seems to be too big, or that the fact that it's intermixed in some ways waters it down and makes it where it's harder to get a viable run than I think it should be.
Hmm.
I rarely had that moment where I'm like, oh, this is a ridiculous build. Like, this is really good. Like, it happened occasionally, but not as often as it does in some of the other roguelites I've played. So I don't know how you guys feel about the augment pool itself and the cores.
I think the biggest complaint I always had, like the one thing I liked, like using Nimrods as the example, is it kind of explained what happens, and a little more like it kind of gives its the little whimsy explanation, but then it also gives you a mechanical explanation as to what
Yes.
exactly it's going to do. And like that was something we were kind of talking about a little bit beforehand. Like like you know you get all these different armor sets, and it says that when you get the full armor set, you get some sort of bonus, but it doesn't really tell you what happens. Because I know I've had a couple of them before. I've gotten the achievement, and I like they don't tell you what it does, and like some of them are they're focused around you utilizing the corruption to your advantage, one making the repros stronger, or different things like that. And that was the part that was just very frustrating. And like with the core armor upgrades and then the augments, like it just that nothing really explained what happened. Like the one that we were talking about where you do more damage while going fast. Okay, what is fast? When does fast start?
Yeah, because
um
there is a speed stat, and there is
because
actually
there's
how
this.
fast
Yeah,
my character is moving, but it doesn't explain. It just says
right.
the fast, more
The
damage by
fast you
going fast, up to 40%. What does that mean?
So that to just mean like, yeah, like yeah, it just doesn't quite explain everything that's going on.
Or the,
um
the the frail glory, which is the crown. When you're wearing it, you get 30% extra damage. Can you keep it? That's what it says.
yeah,
And I was
which
like, so
I
I now
as
know what that is. So
yeah.
I'm looking at it, and it's if the player takes knockback with the crown, it falls off, and you can pick it back up.
Oh, I must have
You must have
because I
had
must
the augment
I
that
had a
kept you
run
from
that
having
I had
knockback.
that. Yeah.
Which okay, great.
So
That is amazing, and I'm
now, but it needs to there needs to be a little explanation of like, don't, if you get knocked back, then you lose it. But
be specific about what you're like. You can just like you said, like you have the little joke, ha ha ha. Here's the joke about the item, but actually tell me what it does. Like
And
the
that
bag of
was
garbage is a
this is
super
and
crucial item, the useless garbage item. But
mm,
you wouldn't know that unless you actually take the risk of taking it and then figuring out that if you have it, it's guaranteed to be what the scrapper wants because you can make the augments into scrap to potentially use the scrap to get other augments. And it's worth 5, so it's worth a lot. But how would you know that? What? Just tell me that.
yeah, and
hmm
I know that it's probably, and this is a nitpicky thing for me. When you first launch the game, they take you through the little tutorial piece, and there's the story that they provide.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but the writing's really lazy and clearly written by programmers. who are just
Well,
like,
and
oh,
it's
this will be a
also
cool line.
it
And
could be part of the mistake of we didn't realize that this is in fact a sequel.
Yeah,
So
there's
well,
that.
there,
sure. But what I mean is that that bleeds into the game design, where they're trying to explain things, but they're keeping that like lighthearted, funny thing going. Where it's like, no, tell me what's gonna happen with this, please, because
yeah,
like
I also need to know what's going to happen. Like, have your fun, but what the heck is this going to do?
and I know that there's the famous online animated by Ego Raptor where it's like just let me figure out, and it's actually about Mega Man
It's about Mega
specifically.
Man X
Yep,
specifically.
Yeah,
How that
yep,
game
and it's
teaches you in the first stage everything you need to know about that game.
exactly, and it's great, and I do agree that at times we don't want to handhold players, right? Because I know some people get really annoyed with like modern games nowadays using yellow
Mega
paint
Man.
everywhere, and it's like, oh, yellow paint, go climb on that. I get it, but also we want those things because there are very few games that I'm willing to spend time to play where I'm just like, I don't know, I'll problem solve my way through it. It's like most of the time I'm like, give me little hints, just tiny things. Like the thing I talked about with Path of Exile last week with that one boss where they just turn invisible. It's like, give me some sort of hint as
Right.
to where you are. Just it can be super subtle. It's like it could be like the Halo like invisibility where it's like it's not completely invisible because they could literally just
There's
hide
just
the
like
character,
a subtle outline or
but
something,
just a subtle enough game design that it's like I know something's there. Let me try,
or
or
a
maybe
little
my
shadow.
eyes are
Yeah,
reading it wrong. So it's like I get it from a writing perspective. You're trying to have fun with it. You're trying to keep it loose. You're trying not to be too serious about it. But that bleeds into the game design and makes it frustrating to go through. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we had been doing this. To be honest, I probably would have stopped at some point because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is really hard to understand what's happening from a variety of perspectives. So I
And
get your frustration with that, definitely.
couple of things there. One is I've been following one of the YouTubers I like, Preach. He was a World of Warcraft YouTuber, but then he does everything now. He's been doing a completely blind playthrough of Monster Hunter World, and it's
Okay.
been interesting to hear him talk about like not understanding the systems or not understanding what the developers are wanting from him, and his community going, I don't understand how you don't know this. He's like, guys, I'm not Googling anything. And from what I understand, what he was talking about today was a lot of these developers now will purposefully leave things vague or somewhat confusing so that the community has to figure it out, and it creates like a Reddit or a
Right.
I
Steam post,
if
right, to
yeah,
get people interacting with the game in a different way. And on one hand, I get that. And on the other hand, when we're talking about a game where I get at best 3 options per upgrade, and I need to make sure I'm picking the best because the game is hard enough that if I don't, I'm not going to make it. Don't be vague about what the dang thing does. I need to know.
Yeah.
well, I think like yes, you want to have more. If they're wanting to have the community interaction in the Reddit, blah 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 blah, that's fine. But think if you don't have that information somewhere to be found in the game, then it's poor design.
Yeah.
Fair.
No, I have to agree.
And
Like
maybe
if the
Like
maybe
game
it
is
can be found in the game. I don't know, but I
there are
didn't find
certain
it.
things like there yeah even like being creative with hints, like there are some of the ones like I was talking about. um I guess I can talk about that later when we get to
Yeah, let's
like
save
talking
that. Yeah,
about
I know where
in-game
you're
stuff.
going. Yeah.
um but yeah, if like just the whole idea of like especially with this game, like Nimrod's like I remember complaining at one point, I'm like, I wish I knew what the stats did, and you're like, oh, just put your mouse over it and you can do that. Well, this game doesn't even let you use your mouse.
Right.
So but I'd like be able to click over and look at augments and have something that, or be able to just explain what these are, what they did, and all the instead
So,
of just
speaking of which, did you know? Like, I'm just looking now at the wiki, like reading through it. Core augments are most frequently dropped from glory zones, but rarely appear within shops or mini bosses. Primary
hmm,
weapons are acquired exclusively from contemplation shrines, and augments are dropped everywhere else.
Huh.
Could you have told me that?
No.
No. No, I would have had
Which
no
ones
idea.
are the contemplation shrines? Is that the ones where you're fighting
The
things and
the
trying to get?
You
ones,
would run
yeah,
in,
the
the shrine
shrine
would be in the
and
middle, you'd right bumper
yeah.
it, and then it would start like a 3-phase, 4-phase
Gotcha.
little mini fight.
I had no idea that that's where primary weapon things came from. I know it. Like,
I made no correlation to any of that. I just was like,
right.
Yeah,
oh,
I
an
would have
upgrade.
yeah, I would
Boop-a-doop-a-doop.
have just blindly I just blindly go through those and I'm just like,
I just went.
I
I
don't
know I
know.
need upgrades to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
so that's an issue. And the other thing I was gonna say is, you're talking about the writing being lazy. I literally, after the cutscene at the beginning, zoned out of it because I was like, this writing doesn't seem very good to me. And if
I
the developers ever listen to this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was not engaged with it, and then I cannot tell you what the story of this game is
No,
about.
No.
not one bit.
All I know after realizing it was a sequel is that it takes 1,000 years. It takes place 1,000 years after the events that happened in the second game, and maybe that's on us because we didn't play the first game. So
I mean, maybe,
I mean,
but like there
still.
were those pods you could find, which would give
hmm
you like little bits of story. And I think I read the first one, and then I went, I don't get anything from this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna find them, and then I'll be honest, and we've all cleared the game at this point. The music was cooler in the final levels. The bosses
Mm,
seemed cool, but I had no connection to the weight of that moment. And that very may well
no.
be because I didn't play the first game. But when we're talking about what this is based off of, which is a Mega Man X, Mega Man Zero kind of thing, Mega Man X does an incredible job in the first stage of setting you up with the emotional weight of what you're dealing with, who the bad guy is, who the good guys are, what you're up against, and the goal you want to get to, how powerful you want to become. And so by the time you
Right.
get to the post 8 Mavericks, when you're fighting those final bosses and doing the boss rush and everything, there's a impact there. You feel that impact.
Yeah.
I
It's a lot
mostly
like
just went,
Castlevania
yeah, I mostly just
Symphony of the
went,
Night.
this is neat. This is a new area. The music
Yeah.
stopped, or it's very minimal now. That's kind of cool. Why am
And I
I
also got to a
fighting
point where I was like,
myself, and why am I fighting
yeah.
Ace? Who
And
is
also,
this
why did
final
it keep
boss?
going? Because I thought the girl was the main villain, whoever, I can't remember her name. I thought she was like the main villain of the game. I was like, okay, cool. We beat
Well,
her.
and you keep
And then
being
it
told to
kept
go
going.
save her, and like there's hints that there's a bigger story here, and
Right.
maybe this is a good transition, Spleen, to go where you were going a minute ago. There
Yeah.
might be a secret ending to this game, but the
Or
way to
couple.
get there is very
um,
vague and potentially time consuming. So if like you're hardcore into this game, that's for you. For someone who came into it much more casually and was just trying to get through it and doesn't want to spend 100 hours, um, difficult to get to. So explaining, you did a little bit of that earlier. Do you want to talk
okay.
about
Yeah,
part of that?
so it was when we were doing the co-op mode, um we stumbled across some random item and um it when and we were kind of just discussing it in the way, and then based on some of the
The
stories, lore
blueprint
stuff, they
blueprint reversal device is what you and I came
we
across. Yeah.
got some sort of yeah, we got some sort of thing. And so then I was like, kind of making the connection using, the gamer brain. You're like, oh, there's more to this, there's some secret here. And so we started, we talked about it a little bit. We pushed back our record date to do a little more research in it to see what this part was. And then finally, early, I think yesterday or earlier today, I can't remember exactly when, I finally just decided, I think it was actually earlier today, I decided to just take a quick glance into what was required to do these different. At first it was just for the one where you find the three items and to go to the owl stage. um but then I learned that there is actually a multitude of these kind of secret things that if you have to fulfill a very specific criteria and by a specific level in order to have something happen. So using the owl one for an example, because it's the freshest on my mind, you had to collect 3 items: an hourglass, an arrow, and
The
some kind of
anchor.
time anchor.
Hmm.
And you had the one that you had to find those before going to the owl level or it wouldn't work. And then once you go to the owl level with the 3 items, it changes the boss fight. Um and gives you some sort of item. And from what I've gathered, there's a handful of these other different ones that once you collect all these different items, it's either these are pieces for a machine or whatever, and then you ultimately will get some sort of secret slash true ending. But based on like from what I've seen online, what it says you have to do in order to get these, again, going back to that point of not having enough information in the game to breadcrumb you there,
Mhm.
um it's very hard to know, like I don't know how one would find these, especially some of them. One of them I remember in particular requires you to find some sort of prompt word and then go to the seed racer one where you can kind of create a seeded run, and then you have to take that whatever that word you find, put it into the seed thing, and then run it, and that gets you the secret thing, the item.
I
So
mean,
like,
that's cool and all to hide things in there, and like if we want to read it, but it's you're totally right. There's not breadcrumbs. Like honestly, when I finished the game, did the first run, like there's obviously more you can do. I didn't know that. It honestly kind of was like, oh, beat the game, cool, go team. But
right.
now, obviously, as you're explaining, there's way more to it. It's like,
Hmm.
how am I supposed to know
And
that?
yeah, I think so far, at least this is the one time I've kind of stumbled across a maybe um piece of information within the game hinting towards this. The one that requires you to put in the word for into the seed racer mode. Um, there is a lot, like, around the word you're supposed to use. Seed is used a lot, so it's almost like in a way you were supposed to just kind of all of a sudden you kind of, it's trying to like subtly hint like it's, check, seed, this word, blah blah blah, these different things to try and like pull you to go, what if I, like, it just, I don't know how you would get to that prompt of like, can I put that in there? Because when you open up the seed racer thing, it's like just a jumbled, you know mass of letters and numbers. But and so I wouldn't immediately think like, oh, I could just type in a word to see what happens.
One
Um,
game that does a really good job of not giving you a lot of explanation of what to do, but you find all the ways you feel compelled to do so, is Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, you walk into it and you have no idea what's capable in the world. But there's keeps being little breadcrumbs of like, oh, I want to try that. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I take this stick and put it through the Oh, I can. Like and now it's on fire. Like there's a lot of stuff from that that's like subtly compels you forward because it adds to the gameplay that it's like,
mhm.
"Oh, I can do this stuff now." And I know that it's like I can, defeat enemies with this. I can do whatever. Where it's the stuff that you're explaining is like what does that give me besides I guess story or a unique ending that honestly I would just YouTube and find someone that's done it personally.
Yeah.
Well, and there, I will say, like especially with like the chrono pointer, like the three when you need the three things and you get like an extra part of a stage or a different way the boss fight goes. Other games have done this better.
Mm.
I played a lot of Slay the Spire, which is a card-based roguelite. Loved it. Anyone out there who likes roguelites and likes card-based games, highly recommend Slay the Spire. Keep an eye on Slay the Spire 2. But after you beat the game the first time, well, you don't actually beat it. You quote unquote defeat the final boss, but it doesn't die and you die instead, and it goes, you know, you died, maybe there's something more. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, by the way, you can collect these 3 crystals and something might happen. And there are 3 different ways to collect the crystals, and you get all 3, and then you get all the way to the end of the run with these 3 crystals. So you've had to make the choice to collect them instead of different upgrades like that. And then you get to the end of that run. If you have the 3 crystals and you beat that boss actually dies, and it opens up another door, and there's 2 more bosses after that to get to the true ending. I have no issue with that. Like,
Yeah.
that is clear, that is evident. Like, I was like, and it becomes a new goal. And I was like, oh, I've completed enough runs at this point that now there is a new goal. I couldn't complete but 1 fucking run in this game.
Yeah. Most of my runs would end at level 3 or 4 after I got like decent at it. At first it was just level 1. I would die on level 1 every single time.
I'm
But I
sorry.
got to level well, yeah, it was painful. I got to like level 3 or 4, but I'm like, I'm never gonna get to the end of this because also personally, I feel like the power ups that we got in the overworld weren't that strong.
Compared to other
I
games,
unlocked
yeah.
I unlocked most of them. I did not unlock all of them. I unlocked most of them. And the one that felt the most useful was the oh god, not it's something tank where we can revive
Hmm.
while we run
Auto
through it.
tank.
Thank you, auto tank. I keep wanting to call it back to tank, and that's not right. Um, I guess it
Same
kind of
diff.
works, but that's one felt the most useful to me, and also being able to purchase reward or augments before going in. Those felt the most, but everything else kind of felt like eh. Like at least with Nimrods, it's like, oh, I could increase how much health I get back. I could increase like on my health regeneration or etc. Right? You could do that kind of stuff. But
There
this
was a
is like,
lot more customization before you started to run with Nimrods.
right,
With this, there were upgrades, but even with like a Dead Cells, the upgrades there really mattered too, because you
yeah,
can upgrade how many health flasks you have. You could have a better chance of getting the kind of weapon you wanted to start the run, or the kind of shield you wanted to start the run.
right,
Those are all options. With this, you kind of have a random chance for some augments, and one of the more powerful upgrades is the chance to either choose your stage or to add more re-rolls during a run, which is all great. But for a roguelite, for me, you need that. As the more runs I do, the more powerful I get, the more chance I have to finish more runs, right?
yeah.
That's the
Like you
goal.
actually feel more powerful each time you go back in. Not
Right,
necessarily the game's getting easier, but it's like, okay, I feel like I'm getting better, not just from
right.
my
Hmm.
gameplay, but like my character feels stronger now.
I did not feel that
Yeah.
nearly as significantly as I have in basically every other roguelite I've played. Even Keeper's Toll.
Yeah.
Like,
And
And
you
maybe their
felt the
intention,
difference in your upgrades.
true, and maybe their intention for this game to give developers some benefit of the doubt is maybe it's just like their goal was skill set. Like you need to get better at the game, kind of like an
hmm
FPS to some extent. It's like, sorry, we're not going to give you upgrades or do help you a ton. It's like just get better at the game. Maybe that's the case, and maybe I just suck, and that's fine, and that's for a certain set of develop or players. But yeah, it
well,
was
and
frustrating.
they do have some permanent upgrades you can unlock. You get Memorum or whatever
Memoriam,
Memoria.
the Memoriam, the
Memoria,
cube.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that particular resource goes towards some permanent upgrades, and some of them are okay. I mean, I think that's how you unlock the health tank and um, how you boost how much it heals you and everything. But I think other than like yeah, it's like cool. You can boost your health and energy that you can use or certain things, but I feel like in some ways it just some of the stuff it gives you, it wasn't all that helpful. Um, like sure, certain things can be you'll um you can like, it gives you the ability to boost it, when you're doing a standard run. It gives you the option, instead of only getting one, choosing one level, you can get up to you can choose up to three level, one of three levels, to help customize your standard run a little bit. And you can, um I think the best one that you get from these, I think it's from these, you get the salvage dude in your hub area to unlock a handful of Augs even before the run starts. So you get, um, five, potentially five, if you have the resources to buy them all. Um, Augs you can buy, so then you're going in from the very beginning with a little bit of a boost, and I think that's supposed to help. But yeah, I feel like there are just what gets upgraded and what it helps you with. Like, I wish there was one that like increased base damage, just
Yes.
something, or something that, I wish there was things that maybe, because playing a melee character, there are some that, even if it's something that boosted range just a little bit. Um, like, yes, of course there is Nina, but being able to, hit a couple, a handful of pixels further than normal could be the difference between, taking out an enemy or bodying a hit. Um,
100%.
so yeah, and there are, and then of course, that option could also be, if you want the melee but you also want the range, you could also play Delta, which if you wanted to, you could, which he has interesting mechanics. Essentially is just a fusion of both of them,
Yep.
and but also gets some of his own little mechanics. And I think there are certain augments that only he gets.
When he can't
But
benefit from fusion, and
right, can't benefit from
Right.
fusions,
and he doesn't get
but
something of aces. I can't think of what it is right now.
yeah. So there's everything is kind of like a, give and take. There is, I think one thing they probably do really well in this is that there, there's always going to be a cost. Like, you're not going to just get a steamroll setup that you can just, barrel through everything.
Yeah.
There's just going to be something that might, make it a good setup, but there's still kind of a, something that could potentially cause an issue.
There's
Um,
rarely there's rarely an upgrade that you still don't have to play well, and I don't mind that.
right.
Right. I still want a challenge. I don't want it to be like I get all the gear and I'm just, nothing can touch me and I'm unscathed and I can just. But
I like that
I
one.
want to feel. I know you do. I know you like min maxing. But I still want a little bit of a challenge, but also still feel stronger each time I get further. Like I get so far, I'm rewarded for my time because also I noticed like I think it was my level 7 run, I think it was, or maybe it might have been level 5 or 6. That took well over an hour of my time to get
Uh-huh.
there. And it's like I spent an hour of my life doing this and it's still just as difficult. Like nothing was in return. Heck, even sometimes after a while, the Memoria that you'd get, you would like I would save it up per run to because then it's like, well, I'm gonna wait because there's the upgrade I want is still another 50 Memoria away, and you'd only walk out with 50 after a while or 25, and it's like, ugh, felt like a drag after a bit. But
And this feels like a good transition point because we're kind of dogging on the game a bit,
yeah,
but the developers have given you a lot of different ways to play the game. So we've talked about
true.
standard mode and mega mode. They also have community made levels. They also have a boss
Mhm.
rush mode. They have daily challenges. Like they have co-op mode. Um, there are a
Co-op mode
lot of
was a
different
lot.
ways to play
Yeah,
this game.
co-op mode was a lot of fun and a great way for farming.
Yes, and that
Um,
was kind of how I got there. Was you were talking about
um,
Memoria Fen. When Spleen and I did co-op, we did 2 runs, easily completed them because there's 2 of you. And that's even with turning up the entropy, which is how you turn up the difficulty in the game. And we got a lot of Memoria out of the deal. So it is possible to farm it quickly to get those upgrades.
But yeah, you're right. There is a lot. I think there's actually a builder that comes with the game to where you can
Yes, you
build your
can
own
build your
levels,
own levels.
which is neat.
I opened it for exactly 10 seconds and got overwhelmed. Um, um, but yeah, I tried like a couple of community levels and they were interesting. Some from what I could see, like some people were even more brutal.
Like
If you
Mario
could
Oh, I
imagine.
Maker, but
wouldn't
with
surprise.
Yeah,
with
like Mario
30XX.
Maker on crack. Yeah. And like talking about how long it takes a run to get through, and like there's an interesting thing because there's the entropy, but there's also the world modification settings that you get as well, which you can actually make the runs longer.
And I did.
Um,
And I did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can bump it up twice, and apparently there is an achievement if you can beat Pilgrimage 2 in 40 minutes.
What the hell is
um,
Pilgrimage to?
that is the name of the one that extends the level.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I got really deep in some Pilgrimage 2 runs then.
And then there's one that lengthens the run. There's also one that shortens the run to like only I think 2 or 3 levels, which of course you only get 2 to 3 levels of upgrades before going into the end.
There's also an
Um,
upgrade that allows you to skip to all the way to 8.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that was one of those special secret criteria options. Um, it's supposed like if you were me, I think it's one of the easier ones to obtain, so that's why it might happen a little more frequently. And then yeah, where you went through, you're talking about the one from the gorilla level that then took you.
Well, I got that, and we were actually playing together when I got that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No, I'm talking about there's an upgrade in the upgrade menu to skip that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It literally says at your own peril or something like that. You can skip anywhere
oh
from
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah,
to
yeah,
level 8, and you can
yeah,
just
yeah,
skip
yeah, yeah.
right to the
I
end.
also found
Yeah,
the
right.
secret way to do it.
Yeah.
Like that
Oh, that's right,
also
you did.
happened to me, but that was different.
Yes, yes, you're right. You get a where at the end where you would either pick a level, you could actually just pick the thing and jump right to the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think they've done a good job. Like if I was going to like make this my game, where I was like, look, this is what my friends are playing. This is what I'm really into. I'm gonna put hundreds of hours into this game. I love how many options they've given at that point, including the little like Easter egg type endings where you had to do these specific things to get these items. I like that.
Yeah.
Right. I have no issue with that. They've done an excellent job of giving us all of these things. I'm just a big baby, even though I like difficult games, and I want to complete more than one run in 100.
That says something because you're one that's your thing. I mean, you love the Souls games and you love that challenge. You go deep into those games.
The,
Like
the,
anything with a challenge, you're behind.
the
That
thing
honestly
about,
kind of says something about it.
yeah, and I love Mega Man. Mega Man X is one of my favorite games of all time. The thing is, what I ended up finding here was I got fatigue rather quickly with
Mm,
going through the levels over and over again because they're different, but they're not that much different. And I found a lot of dread, not dread, but I was like, I really don't want to explore the whole stage to find these
yeah,
upgrades. Like there is an augment that shows you where everything is. And I loved that because then I didn't have to guess where things were anymore. I just
yeah.
followed the bubble and went there and then avoided the things I needed to avoid. Because killing enemies isn't that beneficial in this game.
It's not.
They sometimes drop bolts, but it's so or health packs or whatever, but it's so inconsistent that usually the risk of taking damage is outweighed by the benefit, or no, the the risk to take of getting bolts is outweighed by the benefit. No, look, I don't want to take damage, and it's not worth the bolts to do it.
Right. The risk
That's
does
what I'm
not
trying to say,
outweigh
right?
the reward.
And so I was like, I just don't want to plod through an hour and 15-minute long, hour and a half long run at times, trying to find everything to make the run viable,
Yeah.
right? Like, at least in a Dead Cells, I have a mini map, so I know what part of the
A
map I
map
haven't
would be
explored.
great just to have an
Yes.
idea of.
And I
It was
know
kind of similar
I
when I
know it's not a
played.
Mega Man thing to have a map, but after so many
Give us a
runs,
map.
just show me where the upgrades are. I'll go get them, right?
Yeah.
I will go get
Yeah.
them, but I don't want to. The game
And honestly, after
operates
a
so
while,
nicely with the platforming, but also
yeah,
I don't want to do all the platforming.
yeah, after a while, like if I didn't get that augment to help me find it, and that's probably part of my problem. I probably wasn't getting all the stuff, but I was like, I don't want to spend more time looking for it.
Oh yeah, I did
uh,
not explore.
no, I did the
Um,
first few runs.
When it's
Then after a
novel,
while,
it's
I
not
was
so
like,
bad.
right. But somebody want to just say to game developers, if you're listening to this for whatever reason, the penumbra stages. Oh, for the love of God, make the jumping puzzles just like 10% easier, just a
It
hair.
just
reminded me of Celeste. I doubt either of you ever played Celeste.
No,
mhm,
I know you did.
And it's a game I
hyper
should have
precision.
loved, but I find that these really more platformers that really need like you to be like fully in the moment with them to play them well will frustrate me really bad if I'm in a bad
Yeah,
headspace or I'm not fully in the moment. And life, when I played Celeste, life shit was happening to me and I could not enjoy that game. I feel very similar here where I was distracted
yeah,
and it was hard to get like not take damage. I'm good at the platforming in this kind of game because I've trained myself to be, especially with the Nina type character. But the numbered platforms where it's
Mm-hmm.
it's red, I say numbered and then I start talking about colors, but it is one, two,
Um,
three, red,
one, two,
purple,
three,
green.
red, blue. Yeah, red, blue, green,
yep.
and
And then they disappear after one jump on them. Okay, I get what you're going for.
they. What I
Irritating though in
yeah
practice.
yeah the
Celeste
thing
did it
that I
right. This feels wrong.
yeah I
There was
just I
actually a run I
remember
ended, not to cut you off, Spleen, for 2 seconds, but there was a
yeah
run that I died on because I could not finish a jump puzzle. Like I kept
oh
falling down all the way, hitting spikes, and the little sphere guys would come out, constantly spawning, and then and that's the only level that has constantly spawning things. And it's
mm-hmm
like, why this level where you're gonna make it more jump puzzle and environment heavy? Like anytime I got a chance to choose the penumbra stages, I chose it early
Oh,
because
and
it's
that's
like,
something we should actually discuss. That is something that I think they did right. So I'm glad you mentioned this. And I explain. Do you want before I do move on to this? Do you want to say what you're going to say?
oh I was just saying it like I've played a number of platformers, some very, and varying degrees of difficulties. Um, and I have not raged more than I did on the Penumbra stage, trying to figure out those mechanics. And that is including beating the water tower, or what the water tree or whatever in
Oh,
Ori of the Blind
okay.
Forest with only 3 health.
You were playing Ori and the Blind Forest wrong.
Yes, I guarantee. Yes, I'm fully accepting. I played it wrong. I didn't mean. It
I
was one of
beat
those.
the Jinzo tree last time in one life, and most
I
people get it.
didn't mean to get there when I did, and then I realized I only had 3 health to survive that stupid tower, and
Jinzo tree.
I finally did it, and I remember getting very grumpy, but it was nothing compared to what happened when I would be going through that level. And sometimes the climbing part of the owl level, that there were just certain things that just
oh,
felt
with the
like
clouds.
the game just was out to get me.
Yeah.
And it went very much from just being a challenge to a personal attack
It was
So
that
like
I
people that were
just
playing
let's
Benny Foddick Get Over It. It was just like, oh, oh, I was expecting a voice to come out of nowhere and taunt me, and just
Right.
make me feel bad about myself. Anyways, we were gonna say
Let's talk
Sharks.
about
But
stage order. So, no
yeah.
matter which version you're playing, the order of the stages ends up changing how the run's going to go.
Mhm.
So, if you encounter a stage early in the run, it's the platform is going to be easier, the enemies are going to be easier, the layout's going to be
Yes,
easier, and the boss
boss
is
is
going to have
easier.
less abilities
Yeah.
and going to have less health. The deeper you get into the run, so stage 1 through 8, the bosses are going to get harder, the levels are going to get harder and have more mechanics. So, for example, Penumbra, if you get that stage early, it's really not a big deal. Like that boss is
Mm-mm.
never a big deal. That boss is
No,
always
boss is
No.
easy.
actually I kind
Yeah.
of like that boss.
It's a
Yeah.
cool
The boss
boss.
is super easy.
But the stage can go from not so bad to a nightmare between
Yeah.
1 and
To
8. Same with
Yeah.
Hoot Omega. Same with actually the one that I struggle with the most. I didn't mind those two
uh,
so much. Mine was what's the compute robot
the
guy level?
the I can't remember the one that like makes you go upside down.
That one I got
Yeah. So
Prototype 9. I got over that one. I got
Oh,
much
okay.
better at that one. This is
Which one were you talking about then?
the one with all the lasers and
Uh,
what is that? Hang on, I'm on
the
the.
one
it didn't have the
the
gasoline tank throwing guy, did it?
No, that had
Oh,
the
okay.
hardest enemies. I thought.
That one, no, I agree with
Hang
that.
on, I'll tell you
Are you
right
talking
now.
about the deep space one with the super easy boss?
Yeah, the Deep Space one's the super easy boss. Sure.
Did he have the big fists?
Let's see. Legacy is the level.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
No, Capital Punishment was no like
Okay, that was capital. Okay, yeah,
Capital
got it.
Punishment. The platforming wasn't hard. The enemies had more health, and then there was that one mid boss that if you
That
don't
mid
have the
boss
right
is a
setup going in,
pain.
it can be a pain.
The thing that killed me the most in the game was that stupid freaking boss. Anyways,
If you have something that blocks projectiles, it's much easier. But
yeah, I learned that with the hammer.
but Legacy, that level later in runs wrecks me because there are so many lasers and there are so many ways to lose to lose health, like so many
A lot of
problems.
environmental stuff.
And
Yeah.
they put enemies in just the right spots, which okay, cool, that's fine. But that could be a problem. And then Echo Beast is the other that really would trip me up because later in runs, you would have these because you can dash through that sand, that quicksand.
Yeah.
You would have to do platforming dash jump
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
That actually got
Um.
pretty legitimately difficult on like a 6, 7, or 8.
hmm
Yeah.
None of the
I think I was
bosses
messing with.
changed enough to matter, but
Yeah.
the levels did. In fact, I rarely died from bosses. I
Agreed.
mostly died from levels.
And honestly, my favorite part of the game were the bosses because there were no bosses where I was like, this sucks. All of them felt fine and kind of fun. Like
You
I
would
was
have liked
like,
the boss run.
I
Boss
I
Rush was
kind of
good.
like
You should try
getting to
Boss
them.
Rush if you play any more time. It is
Okay.
basically Boss Rush is
Yeah.
just you can choose some augments, you face a boss. You can choose some augments, you can face a boss, and that's it. That's all it is.
Got it.
It does get a little more difficult because you don't get nearly as many upgrades as you do in a
Right.
run,
Sure.
but it is,
It was fun. We
it's good
enjoyed it.
boss practice.
Yeah, we enjoyed it,
So
and I'm
we
glad they have that option because one of my big gripes with Dead Cells was I could have a good run going, but if I didn't know the boss, I could still get absolutely trucked.
right.
They have added a while ago added the ability to just fight bosses.
Good. It's been a while since I played Dead Cells, even
Yes.
though I love Dead Cells.
Yes, they do
I
have
do
that.
remember enjoying Dead Cells.
I have not touched that game in a hot minute, and I don't know what else has changed.
It's they've added so much to that game that me entering it now feels overwhelming.
So we've been this episode's been running for a while. What do we kind of want to wrap up with that we want to talk about before we get to our rating and that kind of suggestion
Yeah.
of
I think there are two things that I've really thought about as we've gone, and the first is kind of a conversation on this is clearly a game that was inspired by a very specific series of games. versus a Dead Cells or something like that, which I don't think Dead Cells is really inspired by anything, but is very much a standalone kind of
Mm-hmm.
game. How do we feel like this versus the source material? Like, I obviously played the source material more. Does it make a difference trying to base, like, is it something should we compare this to other roguelites? Should we compare this to other platformers? Should we compare this to the source material? Like, how do we look at a game like this and uh, as objectively as possible come away with an understanding of what they were going for?
Personally, I think comparing it to other roguelites is fair because that is clearly the intention for the base gameplay. There's all this other stuff they've built around it, which is great. But I think what they marketed as is the standard mode, which should be compared, I believe, against other roguelites. Because if they're going to go in that space and consider themselves one, they need to compete with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
As far as comparing it to the source material, I'm not super. I will admit I'm not familiar with the source material. Obviously, Sharks, you are because of how you've played a variety of the Mega Man games. But even with my limited knowledge and watching them and playing them, this felt very different. This felt very not in that world. Honestly, when you guys sent it to me, I was like, oh, a Mega Man esque game. Cool. Like they're kind of creating it clearly inspired. I had no idea it was attached to the world because nothing felt like Mega Man, like it was trying to fit with that actual universe. It just felt like the art style was inspired by
Mm-hmm.
Mega Man. At least that's how it felt to me. And then once I learned it was like, oh, this is supposed to be kind of canon, I guess. That came as a surprise to me.
I don't. Yeah,
So
I don't know if it's supposed to be canon, but it's definitely leaning way heavier to wanting to be a Mega Man game that then has roguelike
If you
right.
stuff.
blindfolded me and you put a controller in my hand, it would be hard for me to tell the difference as far as movement and like just the basic attack of Nina
Mm-hmm.
to Mega Man X. Like they feel, other than the dash animation being a little longer, everything feels exactly like Mega Man X to
Yeah.
me, which
Okay.
is a compliment. Like Mega Man X
Yeah.
has a very tight, like, even though it's as old as it is and it runs at 30 frames per second, super tight game. This is just an updated version of that. For me, as someone that's put lots of hours into Mega Man X, this feels I'm at home with the base mechanics of this game, like the dash jumping, the wall sliding, the jumping and doing shots, like all of that feels very familiar to me.
Okay.
But
Spleen.
after that,
Oh, you had more. Never mind.
like,
Sorry.
well, but once I get beyond that, it is still a Mega Man title in a lot of ways, but I the bosses are fine, but I don't have a particular boss that I was like, that's the one I felt good when I beat it. You know, even in Mega Man X, it was like, oh, this boss is the one that always caused me issues, or this is the boss that I know I'm having a good run if I overcome that fight clean. This one, it was like the bosses felt lackluster to me, and I don't know how you felt about that, Spleen, but like in the Dead Cells, like it, if I beat the Timekeeper clean, like I knew I had a good run going, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, it was like, okay, Hoot Omega's gonna run away from me, and if I kill him before he gets all the way to the end of the level, cool. I don't know. The bosses all were different, but also none of them were challenging or unique enough to the point that I was like, I'm gonna
And the
remember
only
this
reason they were
boss.
challenging is just because it was hard to dodge stuff after a while. There was no mechanic where I'm like, that's a timing thing I got to get away from, or anything like that. Like, it was just more of like, there's so much stuff on the screen. Can I dodge this in time? That's really all it was.
Which made some
And I
of the
think,
mini bosses harder than the main bosses.
yeah.
Yes.
The crystal guys
Um,
in Echo Beast stage, the
Oh,
two of them
yeah.
that shoot the little crystals,
mm-hmm.
I struggle with those guys because
Yep.
there were a lot of things to dodge.
Yep, completely agreed.
I think that was one of the, just quickly going back to one of my initial like other issues that I was running into. Um, I I was very used to dashing through enemies,
Oh,
and I think maybe if you have the shield, you might be able to do that with your dash, but otherwise, you can't dash through enemies, and so then that would also be an issue. But it's like, I very quickly picked up that this was definitely, it felt like someone went, we are starting with Mega Man, and then we are going to expand and add the roguelike part. It's is it roguelike?
I've
I think we
seen
had this
Maybe
both.
conversation
both.
before.
I
Anyway,
really don't know what its like official definition is.
before before they started with Mega Man and expanded it, not the other way around. Um,
Which is fine, and they
bec-
they were
which yeah,
successful in that goal.
yeah, they made a very successful Mega Man roguelite game.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think I'm trying to think, kind of from the Dead Cells point of view, it definitely like I feel the levels definitely have more personality than the bosses do. Um,
Agreed.
where it's almost like when you finally get to the boss fight, it's almost like that's a break.
It was a
um,
deep. Yeah, you're right. It was like a deep breath. I was like, okay, I'm at the boss.
I'm at the
We're good,
boss.
man.
They're fairly simple. Because yeah, for the most part, yeah, Owl always runs away, and the only
Oh,
thing
the
that
owl
ever,
was so easy.
yeah, and if you're fast enough and do enough damage, you can kill Owl before they ever get far away. I mean,
And
that was a fun thing to find out, that it's like if you happen to kill it before you get to the final spot, that's fine. Then you keep running.
even if it got to the
Um,
final spot, it just kind of stood there and
yeah,
shot
it
one
never,
ability at you.
yeah,
At least some of them had an enrage type of mechanic and would like increase their abilities. Like
Sure.
the ape guy, he would
Mhm.
hmm
really start like increasing the amount of shots going out, and it was like, okay, we're
Yeah.
getting close to the end. But
But you're totally right, Spleen, that like my concern was always in between the start and the end, and then the end was more like, all right, I can do this. But it was like the in between. It
yeah,
was always like, oh, which I've never, for me, never really experienced again. The in it's like I'm going to compare it to WoW for a second in terms of like raids. You have the trash in the middle that can kill groups, right? But you learn the mechanics, you kind of get good enough at it, and then it becomes second nature almost. And then you get to the bosses, and those are the concern because it's like, okay, there's this specific mechanic that always kills me, or I'm not ready for it, I'm not skilled enough, whatever it may be. The journey was to the boss, not the in between. It felt very much
hmm
so like tipped on its head in terms of what the normal flow of a game would be. Because you're totally right. It would feel kind of like a break once I got to the boss. I was like, sweet, let's do this. Although I enjoyed the penumbra boss. I don't know why. They did have kind of interesting mechanics to
yeah.
it.
That
So
one had some fun stuff to it, because yeah, there a lot of them almost felt very, I don't know, felt very samey. Like, even if it was like,
mm,
oh, the gorilla guy hits me and adds fire. Um, he hits me and has a projectile. Well, the Echo Beast hits me and has a projectile.
yep.
He but he also bounces
Yep.
around some. So cool. Echo Beast bounces around, Gorilla has a fire shield.
Yeah.
There were some differences, but in a lot of ways they were again very samey.
Art was different.
also, Echo Beast is literally just a redo of Armored Armadillo from Mega Man
Is
X.
it
Yeah.
Like
fantastic?
basically the same.
Well, and I
But
was like, there was a point in time where I was like, I swear, like half of the enemies were just like meant to kind of look like Pokemon. Um,
You did mention that. I mean, Hoot Omega being like a hoot hoot.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the owl. But so I wonder, because I don't have as much. I don't know. I only know the bosses from Mega Man X. Um, if there were like other bosses from other games that maybe all of the bosses kind of reference a boss at some point,
And
and
I'm
maybe
okay with
that's
that.
Yeah.
um.
I just
That's fine.
didn't
But yeah,
find
what
them as engaging as
Yeah.
some other games that I've played.
But
So,
Sharks, you said you had a second thing you wanted to talk about, I think, if I
oh
remember correctly.
gosh, let's see, what was that?
yeah.
That was a while ago.
I can't remember.
Don't
It's
remember,
okay.
but that we made my main
Spleen,
point.
did you have anything you want to hit on that like you that's kind of stuck with you that you wanted to?
um. I'm trying to think what else we haven't really covered.
We've covered a
Yeah.
good bit of
Yeah.
everything. Why don't we just go ahead and I think lead into the final things. Favorite, least
Yeah.
favorite moment from a run or anything like that that you guys experienced.
Gotta be my favorite was getting to the level 7 because it felt good. Like I was like, yes, I'm enjoying
Level
this.
7
This feels good.
unassisted. Yeah.
Unassisted. I was and the just it was the excitement of like I'm almost there and then dying. It's like, you know what? That's okay. We'll try again. Like that. I don't know, that was enjoyable. For me, my least favorite part was that freaking like gasoline throwing son of a bitch in the middle of that capital punishments level. And I'm just like, I died so many things that time. The freaking thing. I got used to it after a little bit, sort of, but I would still die to it. Like it, the the moves are very like where they throw the gas canisters and they bounce. I don't. It's just really hard to avoid it after a little bit.
And
And I would get to a point where I'd avoid it, but I wouldn't be moving anywhere. I wouldn't be near the boss attacking it. I'm like, now I'm just focused on surviving instead of attacking. So it's just like for me, that was easily my least favorite part.
the one thing that never made sense about that mini boss through the entire level leading up to it
You can
and
shoot the
after,
can.
even
Yes.
even in the final boss, you can hit the gas can, but for some reason in this mini boss, you can't touch them.
Drove me nuts.
You can
Only
block
time I
them
was
with
able
other
to-
moves, but you have to have that
Right.
ability.
Yeah,
Like
I
all,
only
if
ever found
all
the
they
hammer
did
good
were
for
to
me.
give you the ability to bounce those, to like hit them back,
Yeah.
wouldn't be a
Completely
problem.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, when I got the
Completely
hammer,
different.
I was able to do that. But I had to have a run where I got the hammer, which didn't happen all that often. So it just was ugh, yeah.
Easily the worst mid boss, I would say, of all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, agreed.
Though, unless
Agreed.
you got the spiky, rolly guy on the ape stage and you didn't have a way to kill it before you got in the room,
Oh yeah,
that one is hard to avoid all of the fire that he puts down.
that is true.
The one where it
Um,
climbs the lava is not so bad, but
Yeah, the
But what
climbing
about
one,
for you, Spleen?
um, well, that I always had more issues with the climbing, climbing part of that. I've learned that I am great at horizontal platforming. Vertical platforming is not great.
Mm, I feel that.
But no, I think worst times were definitely when when I would accidentally pick a mod or like misinterpret what it meant, and like you'd be doing a great run, you have a pretty decent setup, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get locked up every 3 seconds if you get hit, um, which can immediately kill any run, and just those would be highly frustrating. And um, they're you know I don't know if I have like any like my worst takes were just bad platformings. I think it was one of the owl levels where it was like triple, like I had to go from clouds to horizontal clouds, vertical cloud, horizontal cloud, while
Mhm.
getting the spikes rained on me. And it was earlier in the run, or I didn't have any sort of like leg mobility augments, so I was still basically just using the base jump. And it was just, trying to climb on the clouds that constantly disappear on you while dodging the lightning bolts that were knocking me off of them, and all of these different things. And it was just that was the one time I remember, like, I just turned off the game. I was just like, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm done with this run.
Yep.
But anytime, even just having even a slightly higher jump than normal can completely change any of that. One of my more favorite runs was one of my kind of like research runs, and I was just playing with different augments, and I came across the the double augs, but damage is permanent. And then I combined it was and then I combined that with you know it was like a bonus damage to bonus damage when your health is full, and then I think another one where it's like you do a bunch of extra damage but you're constantly taking you take damage every 10 seconds and all these different things, but the way it all like worked out, I ultimately it was almost as if I was invincible and I would just take damage every 10 seconds, because and then you just blare through the level completely, without any sort of worry about getting hurt because you don't take any damage except for every 10 seconds. Um because it made yeah, you didn't take damage from anywhere else except taking damage every 10 seconds. And so you're invincible essentially. And you just keep so with the double augments, you add, anytime you were to boost your health, instead of 40 it was 80, or any of those different things. And so it was just one of those runs where like that was like one of the few times where when everything got set up I was like, well, I'm not dying. There is no way to die in this run. um and unless I stood still.
Right.
And those were always fun. Like every once in a while you would find a little gem of a setup that you didn't realize would work out as well. But yeah, those were always fun.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What about you, Sharks? What
I
least
think
and favorite?
I think I have two favorite moments. Two and a half. One was that night that, because we have a little group chat going that, it was very much like Fen is really struggling with let's get in a group chat and all play at the same time and kind of work through things with each other. And I think we all like found success during that couple of hours that we played together, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Agreed.
In
was
fact,
a lot
we
of
all
fun.
talked about that. Maybe that's something we should do with games
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. I really enjoyed that time, and I also really enjoyed the co-op time that Spleen and I had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it made the game really easy, but it was kind of ridiculous in how easy it was. I'd still died, but here we are. And then my like half point, no, my full point would be the the run I completed on Mega Mode where I had no deaths.
Oh yeah, I
It
remember
just
that.
was
Yeah.
it came out of nowhere. It was fresh, and it just did it, and it was like, oh, I beat the game. Okay, cool. All right, I can do this. And that was the closest I ever got again. Um, my least favorite moment happened yesterday.
Oh
Had this
yeah.
amazing run going. Um, had a stack of 3 of a plus 50% damage multiplier and some other things, and I was just like, I feel like this is gonna be a run. And I got into level 7 and nothing was hard. Like I had so much damage. And at the beginning of some stages, Delta can show up and offer you a challenge and say, at the end of the stage, I will give you this cool thing, but during the stage, this bad thing is going to happen to you. And that bad thing was what Spleen had just talked about, which was every time you get hit, it locks up all of your abilities for 3 seconds.
Yep.
I accidentally clicked yes. And it was a level 7 legacy stage where there were tons of enemies, and I kept getting hit, and I made it to the boss, but that boss puts out a lot of things that can damage you. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but when it locks up every single one of your abilities,
It
you
doesn't
can't
matter.
do
Yeah.
anything. And I had that double augment one that, everything, you double all of your augments that you get, but damage is permanent. And I went from 280 health to 0.
Ugh.
And there was nothing I could do. Like, I would have had to play perfectly, and it sucked. It sucked to lose a good run like that. So that
That
was
kind of
my
sums
least
up
favorite.
everything we've talked about tonight. Honestly, that one run, like that sums up things very, very well, and the experience in which you just had. Because I remember you messaged that. I was like, that hurts.
It did.
That
It was
hurts.
it was deflating.
Yeah, that hurts.
Okay, well then let's get to our ranking. Who wants to start?
I'll go first.
1 to 5.
So I think the last game we played, which is Nimrods, I think I gave it a
You give it a
3 or
4.
a 4? 4,
I
right,
think
right.
you gave it a
For,
4.
and the first one was a 2. This one, for me, and this is just my personal opinion because this is what we're doing, I'd give this one a 2 for me, on a multitude of layers. It's not that I was like, I wouldn't recommend it to people, but it for me, the kind of gameplay that I am fine with pushing through, like Elden Ring or like that kind of stuff. I'm fine with, like, let's just get through it. Let's do this. I know, like, I just couldn't with this game. There was, and then as I said, some of the writing stuff, some of the gameplay mechanics that they've kind of feel like they need to be smoothed out to me. But maybe it is just one of those things where it's meant for a specific player base, and I'm just not that. So for me, it was just like, art style's good. I mean, it's pixel art, well done. Soundtrack's pretty good. Outside of that, and the controls did feel good. That is not a complaint. Everything else is that's why it kind of makes 2 for me. It's just it's okay.
Explain.
Um, yeah, I'm probably leaning right at a pretty solid 3. Like, it is fun, it's entertaining, it has good music, good art, good controls, everything. But then it just starts to feel a little hollow. It seems
Mm.
like just like, the levels are harder than the bosses, and then there's really, the payoff from the bosses don't feel like it really does anything. Like, cool, you can get some powers from the bosses, but they don't really help you in any way. Like Mega Man X, for example, where if you were to use a certain power, it does extra damage to a certain boss. So as far as I can tell, none of that happens with the powers that you get. Um, so it seems like it just needs some extra things to really make it more substantial, and giving us the information we need to understand to help better make our decisions. Because again, yeah, like Shark said, these are, we get basically 3 choices in a run, and if we pick the wrong one, the run's over. um and so we need as much information as possible. um and like, I'm trying to I had one more point, but now I've kind of lost it. And I think it would be one of those, like, I would still recommend it to people and say, yeah, it's fun, but there's always going to be a little asterisk of, like, but it's gonna kick your ass. You're gonna it's gonna um the learning curve is heavy. Of course, if you're a Mega Man fan, you'd probably jump into it a lot more. But yeah, I would say, I think 3, a solid 3 for me.
Cool. What
Nice.
about you, Sharks?
I kind of want to give it 2 different scores. As a Mega Man game, or a game inspired by Mega Man, 4.5 out of 5. Like, it feels
Mm-hmm.
like Mega Man X. Like, it controls tight. Like, it feels familiar to me. But the way it falls short in that way, and the major way it falls short is a Mega Man game for me, and which might hold it to more of a 4, it's exactly what Spleen just said. There is that rock, paper, scissors kind of thing with Mega Man games where it's like, this boss is weaker to this special move you get from another boss, right? That's harder to do in a roguelite, but it's not impossible. I miss that. I miss that choosing the boss order made a difference. I really do. I don't know if you knew this. There are boss interactions with some of the abilities. If you hit Hoot Omega with the armadillo boss's name, I've just forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Echo
Echo.
Beast.
Yeah.
If you hit him with Echo Beast's ability and freeze him, it will turn off the little star fire that shoots down for the rest of the fight.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Well,
You
I
know,
wouldn't have ever known that because Ace doesn't get that.
Right. Like, and I did it once, and I went, "Oh, that's cool," but completely not the most help. I mean, it's helpful, but not that helpful. I miss
Yeah.
that. So, as a Mega Man game, let's say a 4. I'm gonna stick with a 4. As a roguelite, I'm out of all the, and I've played quite a few roguelites at this point. 2.5. Like it's
It's
it's successful in what it's going for, right? Like it is a Mega Man roguelite. That's what it is. And it does a decent job of doing that. But the the powers is too random. Like the pool for powers is too big. Like it's hard to get a cohesive run going. The abilities the bosses drop don't feel super impactful. In fact, I oftentimes found myself mostly using my X Buster, like the
hmm
basic attack or the sword or whatever it was with Zero. Not all that great. The bosses were fine and they were cute, but they weren't the really quality bosses that I remember from Mega Man X or some other games like that that I've played where I'm like, ah, that boss. Like, I I have all 8 Mavericks from Mega Man X right next to me, mostly because Spleen gave me a thing that has them on there, but they're there and I can name all of them and I know what powers they had and I know what their patterns were. I only kind of know this for this game. Like the levels were cool, but eventually I kind of got tired of that repetitive part of it. I didn't like hunting down everything to just try and make a run viable. Like I'm okay with these games being hard. Roguelites are hard. Totally fine, or a lot of them are hard. Totally fine with that. But I also want to feel like I'm making progress over the course of 100 runs instead of feeling like I have just as much chance as I did the first run.
Yeah.
So as a roguelite, I'm giving it like a 2.5. As a Mega Man game, I'm giving it a 4.
yeah.
If it's on sale and you like Mega Man games, pick this up. It's totally
Yeah, I
worth
would
it.
agree with that. I know my score was low, but I would agree with that. If you like Man, and that's what kind of got me like when you now like said we were gonna play it. I was like, oh, Mega Man game, that'll be fun, and it was for the first few hours for me. But then that kind of wore off. That newness of it, which also is part of ADHD. I'm aware. But I definitely would recommend if you like the Mega Man games and kind of like roguelites. Yeah, give it a shot.
Cool. Well, we've chosen our next game for our next episode,
Mhm.
and by the time we record our next episode, Fen will be a father. That's a crazy thought.
He'll actually be the dad.
Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy? So,
yeah.
hopefully we'll have him for the next one. I guess we'll see how everything plays out as your life completely changes.
I'm gonna do everything I can.
No problem, no worries.
Good thing I have a Steam Deck, and this would run great on it.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you actually have to have the energy.
there's that. There's that.
Caffeine's one hell of a thing.
It's not enough.
But I
Anyways,
got to choose
Anyway,
this game. It was my turn, and I wanted to get us away from the roguelites since we've done 3 roguelites in a row, if only to have like a definite cutoff for when the game's over.
that too.
So I have chosen a game called Ultros, which is a Metroidvania, which Spleen played a little bit of and says it's sort of like Hollow Knight on acid.
it
Yeah,
kind of looks like, yeah, the art style makes me think of Hollow Knight, but it's very much very colorful.
I'm about 97. I see my playtime's 97 minutes. Uh, Obviously not going to talk about it, but it's interesting, at least from the style and the story. Like very like whoa, like this they're very different. And one thing that I hope you guys will kind of catch on when you play it is the animations are very clearly inspired by Castlevania Symphony of the Night, because the way he turns is like Alucard, like
Ooh,
his cloak
I'm
will
already
like
interested.
flare out like that. And I'm like, that's because I have very good memories of that, and so seeing that, I was like, it's very clear that's like part of the vibe. I'm totally fine with it, but it thus far has been a very interesting experience that I already have a lot of things I'm looking forward to talking about.
Sweet. I can't wait. I can't wait to have a completely different experience. So, well, this is fun. This was good. It was another 2-hour episode, and you know what? I don't care. I'm okay with it. So,
Well, We originally were going to two-part it, and then we realized that we're not. That's not necessary.
Maybe someday.
Uh,
Maybe someday. Well, cool. Well, thanks guys for joining me. I am Sharks.
I almost said spleen. Come on, brain. I am Phenom. Oh,
I
need sleep.
I am Spleen.
No,
I
you're
am
sharks.
We are
We're
three
all
tired
sharks.
dads, and we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye.